But there's another aspect of the president's legacy that is equally important. He's been a fierce champion of religious freedom. And during his first year in office, the president signed an executive order upholding religious liberty and the right to engage in religious speech. And he's never stopped fighting, blasting people like New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who forced churches and synagogues to shut down during the pandemic and then kept them on lockdown despite opening liquor stores, abortion clinics, pot shops, restaurants, and gyms. Wednesday night, Cuomo lost that battle in the Supreme Court of the United States in a major victory for religious liberty. The High Court ruling that the forced, ridiculous, unscientific limits on religious institutions is unconstitutional. Joining me now to discuss the historic ruling is Father Frank Pavone. Father Pavone is a Catholic priest and a pro-life activist. Father, this is a great moment for people of faith all across this country, and I think that one of Donald Trump's most enduring legacies is going to be protecting religious freedom after its erosion under the Obama-Biden years. Very, very significant ruling. Your thoughts on this?
Yes, Tom. Well, as you pointed out, there were serious discrepancies in New York between the way that churches were being treated and liquor stores and bicycle shops. And this is a matter not just of basic fairness that Americans want. It's a matter of the Constitution, because we all study the Bill of Rights, in grade school. And very, very first on that Bill of Rights is that the government cannot restrict the exercise of religion. That's exactly what Governor Cuomo did. And fortunately, the justices of the Supreme Court saw it that way as well. Now, interesting little twist in here. Some of the justices on the court said, well, we don't have to intervene to stop the implementation of this order because the governor just changed it, and those areas in New York that were affected are no longer in the red and the orange zone. And the majority said, listen, that's not the point. He could re-engage that classification tomorrow. The point is a constitutional issue. And, Tom, we've been putting this in a broader context. Over the last 15 years, we've had like 14 major victories in our federal court system on religious freedom, at the Supreme Court specifically. And we're turning a corner on religious freedom. President Trump has certainly helped that an enormous amount. And this decision just from the other day, although it's an intermediate decision, that's the merits of this case are still being hammered out in the appellate court. So we're going to see more about this case. But yes, we're on the right track, and all religious people and all Americans should be happy about that.
You were referring, I think, to Chief Justice John Roberts, who said, well, it seems like it's extreme, but we really don't have to worry about it. And he sided with the liberal justices on the court. I thought that it was so shocking, Father, that the liberal justices basically just said we should do whatever the politicians and the bureaucrats tell us to do without regard to its impact on constitutional freedoms because we have a pandemic. That is so incredibly dangerous, don't you think?
It's dangerous. We are, as we often hear the saying go, a country of laws, not men. So it doesn't matter if it's Andrew Cuomo or anybody else in office. The First Amendment of the Constitution still applies, even in a pandemic. And the churches are not at all objecting to the government giving reasonable, equitable restrictions, even on religious gatherings, because of health concerns. But when the government starts restricting religious practice, it has got to have, and those who are familiar with constitutional law are familiar with the concept of strict scrutiny. It's got to have a compelling reason, and it's got to take the least restrictive way of advancing that interest. So, for example, some of these churches that were told you can only have 10 people, some of these churches can hold 1,000 people. So you mean to tell me you can't get more than 10 people into a 1,000-seat cathedral and be appropriately socially distanced? I mean, it goes against common sense. What we're seeing here, too, is we have to understand the Democrat platform. Now, Biden, Harris, and the whole Democrat Party right now have a different concept of religious freedom than tens of millions of practicing religious Americans have. They are seeing it and framing it explicitly more and more in terms of discrimination. So we've got to be careful not only of actions from people like Governor Cuomo, but if Biden gets in, we've got to be very attentive, all of us, to executive actions that are going to start discriminating against religious people more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that's what happened with Obamacare.
Yes.
The executive branch wanted to, by a number of different means, try to force religious institutions to violate their rights of conscience, and the Catholic Church in particular was outright lied to. It was then assaulted over abortion and contraception. Are you, Father, are you hopeful that this is going to have far-reaching consequences across the country? We interviewed Bishop DiMarzio on this network, who took a very rational view of all this. He said, "Look, we don't have any of these any outbreaks associated with our churches or our schools. Why are we being penalized and mistreated that way?" Do you think that this is we're gonna see this really set off a backlash, a legal backlash around the country?
Tom, and you can count on it, and no doubt about it. Like I say, for the last 15 years, a lot of, you hear about these ridiculous cases of crosses, being taken down and being challenged. Crosses that have been up for decades, and apparently nobody figured out that it was against the Constitution. I mean, this is absurd. But we are turning a corner. This is we're going to hear more about this case. Either the Second Circuit will resolve it, or the Supreme Court will take it up again. And I'm confident at this point that they'll resolve it the right way. But again, we all have to be vigilant. We have to learn in every generation over again what religious freedom really is, and what the Bill of Rights is, for that matter. And again, as I say, this is the first freedom listed there.
Father, we'll go 30 seconds for you. Andrew Cuomo shot back after this ruling, said, it's irrelevant, doesn't mean anything. What's your response to him?
Well, if he's saying he can't reimpose those same conditions tomorrow, then I agree. But the fact of the matter is, he has not said that he won't or wouldn't be able to reimpose those restrictions, and therefore it is still very much an issue.
Father Frank Pavone joining us on a good occasion. We're talking about some good news. We really appreciate you being here.
Always good to see you. Take care.